Hey, it's Paul here from the Off the Comma podcast. And if you've been following the podcast, you already know that it's about amazing human beings sharing amazing stories about their experience with being stuck and getting unstuck. And you've probably wondered, hey, whatever happened to that guest? What's happened since they were on the show? So that's what this is all about. We are checking in with various podcast guests and just taking 15 minutes to see what's going on in their world. So, deeper connection, learning more about our guests, seeing how life unfolds for them. Enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you on the next one. So it's so good to see you, Katrina. Welcome to our kind of off the comma podcast guest check-in series. And I'm so excited to hear what you've been up to. Actually, I know a little bit, but I'm excited for everybody else to hear what you've been up to since you were on the podcast, episode 6. You were one of our first guests, and that was July 19th of 23. So that was almost a year ago. So happy to have you here. I'm going to stop completely and turn it over to you, Katrina. Hello, catch us up. What have you been up to since you were on the podcast?
Well, so that was 11 months ago. And when I got off the call with you, I sent an email with um, reaching out to a publisher saying, this is what I've done. I've written this book. I'd like you to take a look at it and let's talk about moving forward. And a couple of weeks later, I got an email response and request for a meeting. And I met with the development editor and another content developer, and they said, "This is way too much.
Huh?
No one, no one's gonna read this."
Well, and just on that note, so just to catch folks up, I know we don't always talk about what happened in the episode, but your whole episode centered around sitting on a comma with writing this particular book. And in fact, you were
Right,
one of you were a guest that we actually got to a declaration, which is not even what we do in the podcast. So you said, I'm going to move forward with this. So now here you
right.
are, you've reached out and they said it's too much.
Yeah, so we probably could have called that episode the crying episode since
Hmm.
that's what I did most. Um, but I so since then, they said it was too much, but said, well, let's talk more. And we had several conversations and kind of thought about different ideas. And we came up with an idea that we all loved. And as soon as we said it was said, I was like, yes, that's it. So I am actually halfway through writing another book
Oh, wow.
that has structure and isn't didn't pour my entire brain into pages. This is purposeful, and ironically, I'm writing in a book about reflection and
Mm.
how to incorporate reflection into learning and development in really specific activity driven ways. And the awesome thing is that I reached out after being really reluctant to do that, expected, I don't know, I had this like big monster look of what a publisher would be, and they've been delightful to work with. They have guided me, they have supported me, they've let me cry,
Mm.
which
Well,
is a
the
theme.
I can't take I can't take a pass on that because you said it earlier. The crying is beautiful. Like I don't believe that you have to cry. I don't believe you have to not cry, but like when you do, that's tapping something deep within us. So like I'm just gonna say I think it's beautiful that you cry.
And they really understood that this is a lifelong dream for me, that I have wanted to write a book, but I've had, very particular ways that I wanted to do that. I didn't want to self-publish. I wanted to, have a traditional experience, and it's been delightful. And so the Association for Talent Development, ATD Press, is my publisher. I have a signed contract now. July 1st, I hit my halfway point that I show them half of my book. And by October 1st, I will have finished writing, and then we'll start the more intensive editing process. And I just really kind of, after sitting on this comma for so long, realized that people are far more supportive than I ever imagined, which is kind of my own demon that I'm facing.
Mm,
And that asking people for help is one way that we actually build really strong connections. And I have not been an asker. I have been a giver. I've been a giver and a giver and a giver.
mhm,
And this process is challenging that. Um, ATD has given me other opportunities as well. So making videos for them on my content knowledge as a trainer and facilitator, which has been fun and challenging and making me kind of do something that I haven't done as much. So it's been a really good process. I'm still
mm,
haunted a little bit by the person who's like, who are you to write this book? um, but but the process has been amazing. Been amazing.
mm.
It took a nudge, and I'm so grateful, Paul, for you really being that nudge.
Well, I just have to acknowledge you because, first of all, you just the smiles and the grins as you talk about this. I can see how much it means to you, and yeah, like I think you nudged yourself. Like you wouldn't have said yes to be on the podcast if there wasn't like a deep, something in there that potentially, even without your awareness, knew that it wanted to get out. So, and look what you did. I mean, this is so cool not only for you to be able to move this goal forward after so many years of it kind of being dormant a little bit and kind of being a thought, if you will, many types of thoughts as you described them, but also kind of what it shows folks is like it doesn't matter how long you've been sitting on it. If it's really important, move it forward. Moving it forward doesn't mean that it just magically becomes easy. Moving it forward doesn't mean that you just magically stop questioning and doubting it. It's just the taking action of it all, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And going right back to that, just i- that it's okay to ask for help. Like, ask people, like, put it out
Mhm.
there. We often talk about, like, put it out there into the world. And that doesn't mean just talking about it. Like, get to the people and take that risk, because they very easily could have stopped the conversation with, like, this is too much, it's not ours.
Mm.
And that had been my fear. I didn't want to hear those words, um, and had planned, like, if they'd say that, then I'm going out on my own. So I had a backup plan, but it took me writing 3 manuscripts and putting them on a shelf behind me. I mean, they're literally right behind me, and sitting on them for years
Mm.
before I took that risk.
Mm. And take the risk you did. And you said a couple of things earlier that kind of stood out for me is like you had this picture, this image of what a publisher was going to be and be like, and then that wasn't the case. But you were prepared in case it was. So there's just a lot of kind of thought there. I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems like even though you described yourself as being scared when we talked last year, like as you moved forward, you put things in place to make it possible to move forward in a couple of different ways.
Mm. Yeah, and it was actually the fact that I had done the work that compelled them to look at other ideas, and because they could see that while I was sitting on one comma, I was way off of another one. Like, I was
Mm,
writing all the time, I just wasn't showing it to anyone. um and so that really benefited me once I was able to have the conversation with them.
nice. You said that you presented them with one book, the book that had been sitting for all this time. And then you said they said it was too much. Y'all did your collaboration, and now you're working on an entirely different book. How uh, tell me a little bit more about that. I'm just curious. Like, how do you feel about that? How much did it shift?
So it shifted pretty substantially, because the first book I wrote was literally like everything I know about learning and development in 300 pages.
Mm,
And that's it's a tome. It was huge. And it actually happened through a LinkedIn post that we came up with the idea of reflection. I had made a comment on Karl Kopp's post about wisdom and reflection, and the editor saw that comment, and the next time we got together, he we talked about it, and out of that came the idea of reflection, which in in the virtual classroom with me or the in-person classroom with me, I really do feel like one of my great strengths is asking questions that really
Hmm.
get you thinking, and placing what you learn into your life context. And so it really resonated with me, and I'm able to pull some from what I've already written and some new, and from other people to really pull together something that I think will be a very workable idea. I think it's really I think it's really needed today when
Hmm.
you and I started talking about like how busy we are and like how everything is moving so quickly. We do need to stop. We need to pause. We do need to take the time to think about the value of the things that we're experiencing. But then the best part of this is, my son and my husband have been very involved in all of the emotions I've experienced around the all of the meetings and the whole book idea. And when I went into my kitchen and told my son, I'm going to write a book on reflection, he looked at me and he said, "Of course you are."
I love that.
So, like, it's right. It's absolutely right. It is, it's work. It's more work, but it's work that I'm enjoying doing.
Isn't it amazing too? Like, often the thing that we're seeking is really right in front of us and always was. We get so I can't even remember all the figures of speech, but we get so used to that thing that we just look right past it. I can't tell you how many times in my own experience, I've actually stumbled upon old journals or old things that I've written, for work or whatever. And it's like, oh crap, I I I thought this was something that just came up new for me. No, I was talking about it before, and then you just kind of forget in between. It's amazing. As I think about the first book, like you said, what you're doing now is really kind of like a separate thing, but pulls from. It's almost like, and then we'll wrap it up because we keep these short. But it's almost like when you said you wrote the Everything I Know About Learning and Development. It's kind of like that was the full encyclopedia. Now you can focus on each of the chapters. I bet there's just so much more in what you created that will just continue to produce fruit, like the mother plant, so to speak. I know you're a gardener.
Right, right.
Shoots.
Just lots of seeds to be strewn about everywhere.
Yeah, or even like what is it when you take parts of the plant off and then
Oh,
grow new
propagate.
plants?
Yeah, we'll propagate.
Propagating.
Yeah, we'll propagate lots of ideas. I love that. I love that.
Nice. And it's all already in there too, I'm sure. So thank
Yeah,
you, Katrina. So what's next for you? I'm gonna put your contact information in the description. This isn't a podcast episode. I have to remind myself. I'm gonna put your contact info in the video description. What's next for you?
well, next, my son is graduating from high school and we are moving him across country for college.
Mm,
And I'm finishing a book in that whole time as well.
finishing the book. Yeah, cool.
Lots of reflection.
Nice, nice. I love this. I love how you're reemphasizing and reinforcing reflection too. It's just like you said, it's so important, and it's something that I even find myself challenged to do just because of the speed of things and the pace of
Right.
things. Yeah. So, what does it mean, and what does it not mean? And I love
What am
it.
I going to do? What am I going to
Yeah.
do next? Right.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. Well, I will personally look forward to talking more with you along the journey. We're going to be able to see your activity posted on your LinkedIn profile, of course, which is on
Absolutely.
your on is going to be in the description. And for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, episode 6 of the Off the Comma podcast with Katrina, that's her original episode. That's the point from which this particular story was born, and I'm just so terribly excited for you. And especially given the fact that, it's been a year later and look at all of this that's happened.
It's been a good year.
It's wonderful. Wonderful. Katrina, have a wonderful week, and we will see you out on the bookshelves.
Thank you, Paul.